Usually when we plan a trip across the globe, there's this expectation of, well, massive, highly visible infrastructure.
Right, yeah, like it's heavily orchestrated and very intentional.
Exactly. You pack your bags, you rely on a network of satellite GPS, massive jet engines, air traffic controllers, and, digital maps just to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, and it's loud. It leaves a massive physical footprint, and it requires constant human intervention.
It really does.
But we find comfort in that, I think. We like to think that crossing continents safely requires this whole dashboard full of radar and a team of engineers backing you up.
Oh, for sure. Without our gadgets, we are completely lost.
Yeah.
But right over our heads, there is a global transit system operating at a scale that just completely dwarfs our aviation industry.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's entirely invisible. We're talking about avian migration today. It's this ancient, perfectly synchronized planetary highway that functions without a single piece of human technology.
I mean, it is arguably one of the most breathtaking miracles of biology, and it's happening constantly right above us. Yeah.
Millions of birds moving across oceans and continents, guided by forces we're really only just beginning to truly understand.
Which brings us to the focus of today's deep dive. We are unpacking the reality of global bird migration and the immense coordinated effort to keep these ancient highways from collapsing.
It's such a crucial topic right now.
It is,
Maybe.
because if you're sitting in a high-rise apartment right now, or, just walking to your car in the suburbs, there's a very good chance a massive borderless journey is happening directly over your roof.
And to anchor this whole discussion, we really have to look at World Migratory Bird Day.
Right.
This isn't just some placeholder on an environmental calendar.
Right.
It's a critical movement. It's supported by the United Nations and global conservation partners all over the world.
Yeah, but what makes it really unique is its structure, right? Because it happens twice a year.
Yes, exactly twice a year.
For 2026, those exact dates are May 9th and October 10th. So, okay, let's unpack this. Why does a single awareness movement need two completely separate global launch days? Well, it comes down to biological triggers rather than just, human convenience. The dual celebration actually mirrors the actual rhythm of the planet.
Okay, how so?
So there is this phenomenon in migratory birds, Zugunru, which translates from German to migratory restlessness.
Migratory restlessness. I like that.
Right, it's an internal biological clock. And it's driven largely by photoperiodism, which is basically just the changes in daylight hours.
So as the days get longer or shorter, it just sort of flips a switch in their brains.
Exactly. It literally alters their hormones. So in May, as daylight increases in the north, birds get this trigger to migrate toward their breeding grounds.
Right, the spring migration.
Yeah, but then you fast forward to October, and the daylight shifts again. That triggers the reverse migration for the winter.
So they have to head back south.
Precisely. By having two dates, the movement isn't just acknowledging different hemispheres. It's recognizing that migration is a continuous, closed-loop system. I mean, it never really stops.
That is fascinating. And I really want to get into the mechanics of that loop because the scale of this journey is just hard to wrap your head around. We are talking about tiny, tiny creatures here.
Oh, incredibly small.
Yeah, I was reading that some of these migrating birds weigh just a few grams, essentially the weight of a couple of paper clips.
Yes, exactly. The ruby-throated hummingbird, for instance, weighs about 3 grams.
3 grams. That's nothing.
Right. Or the blackpoll warbler, weighing maybe 12 grams on a good day.
I mean, I get how a pilot crosses the ocean in a metal tube, right? But how does a bird the size of a paperclip cross the Gulf of Mexico? Or fly like 10,000 kilometers from Alaska to New Zealand without just dropping out of the sky from sheer exhaustion?
It's wild. To do it, the physical transformation they undergo is just staggering. Before they migrate, birds enter this phase of hyperphagia.
Hyperphagia, what does that mean exactly?
They essentially gorge themselves. They sometimes double their body weight in just a matter of weeks.
Wow, double their weight.
Yeah, but to make room for those fat reserves, which act as like a really high-octane fuel for the flight, some species will actually shrink their internal organs.
Wait, really? They shrink their organs?
Yeah. Their digestive tracts might partially atrophy because, well, they don't need to digest food over the open ocean. They just need to burn fat.
Imagine running an ultramarathon across the globe, dodging storms and predators, using nothing but a compass you swallowed and the stars to guide you, and you absorb your own organs to make room for fuel? That is intense.
It really is. And they are doing all of this while battling hurricanes and crossing places like the Sahara Desert.
But the part that really bends my mind is the navigation. Like, if they don't have our digital maps and GPS, how are they not getting completely lost over the open water?
So this is where we cross from biology into, honestly, quantum physics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For a long time, scientists knew birds used the sun, the stars, and the wind patterns to navigate. But the Earth's magnetic field is the real secret here.
How do they use the magnetic field, though?
Birds actually have these specialized proteins in their eyes called cryptochromes.
Cryptochromes.
Right. When light hits these proteins, it creates a chemical reaction that is super sensitive to the Earth's magnetic pull. So it is highly probable that birds can literally see the magnetic field of the planet.
Wait, so it's like a built-in heads-up display?
Yes,
Just like glowing lines in their vision showing them which way is magnetic north.
precisely. They basically have a quantum compass overlaid on their visual field.
That is just unreal.
And when you realize how perfectly adapted they are to do this, you start to see the geopolitical reality of their journey, too.
Geopolitical. How so?
We'll take a single Arctic tern, right? It might breed in the northernmost reaches of Canada and winter all the way down in Antarctica. That single bird traverses the borders of dozens of sovereign nations.
Right, because nature doesn't care about our political maps.
It doesn't at all. And that means migratory birds don't belong to anyone, but at the same time, they rely on everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If a bird needs 5 different countries to survive its 10,000-kilometer route, maybe it stops in Mexico for water, the U.S. for food, and Canada to breed its survival inherently relies on international unity.
So one nation dropping the ball just severs the entire planetary highway.
Exactly.
So they perform these miraculous border-crossing flights.
Mhm.
But let's look at the impact they leave in their wake.
Sure.
A lot of people might just look at a flock of geese or, a colorful warbler and think, oh, that's beautiful scenery.
Right, they just see a pretty bird.
Yeah. But what is the actual structural importance here? I want to push past the aesthetics.
Yeah.
Are they just passing through, or are they doing some heavy lifting for the planet while they fly?
Oh, they are absolutely doing the heavy lifting. Calling them scenery is a profound understatement.
Yeah.
They are really the ecological backbone of the world.
Okay, break that down for me.
Let's look at their role as natural pest controllers first. This isn't just about a bird eating a few mosquitoes in your backyard. Research shows that the world's insectivorous birds consume roughly 400 to 500 million tons of insects every single year.
Wait, 500 million tons. That is a massive number.
Yes. And a huge portion of those insects are agricultural pests. Things like spruce budworms or aphids that completely decimate human food crops and commercial forests.
So if those migratory flocks don't arrive on schedule to feast, what happens?
Those pest populations just explode. The financial and structural collapse of human agriculture would be catastrophic.
Okay, so what does this all mean? They are essentially a massive, free pest control service keeping our food supply intact.
Exactly.
What else do they do?
Well, they are also vast seed dispersers and pollinators. Because they process massive amounts of calories, they are constantly eating and, well, excreting.
Right, leaving a trail behind them.
Yeah. As they cross continents, they act as flying fertilizer machines. They drop seeds across massive distances, literally terraforming the land.
Wow.
They help forests regenerate after wildfires, and they ensure plant genetic diversity across really isolated regions.
It almost sounds like they act as the planet's circulatory system. Like if you think of a vital wetland or a forest as an organ, the birds are the blood cells moving between them, keeping the whole organism alive.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it, actually, which perfectly brings us to their role as indicators of environmental health.
Right, like taking the planet's pulse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they are this circulatory system passing through multiple ecosystems, their population numbers tell us immediately if an organ is failing.
So if a specific species of warbler starts crashing in numbers, it's not just a sad day for bird watchers.
No, not at all.
It means a wetland in South America or a forest in Canada is collapsing.
Yes, it's a massive, glaring warning sign. When bird populations drop, it means the insects are gone, or the water is poisoned, or the climate has shifted.
They're like the canary in the coal mine, literally.
Exactly. They are an irreplaceable link in a very fragile food chain. Basically, when birds migrate safely, nature breathes safely.
But that brings us to the core tension of this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
We've established that they have a quantum compass, they can physically alter their organs to survive the flight, and they provide billions of dollars in ecological services.
Right.
Yet we are seeing a sharp, terrifying collapse in their numbers worldwide. If they are this highly adapted, why are they suddenly failing?
Well, the harsh truth is, they aren't failing. The environment they spent millions of years adapting to has been fundamentally altered in the blink of an eye.
Ah, I see.
We have essentially dropped an invisible, highly lethal obstacle course right into the middle of their ancient highways.
Here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, concerning. Let's break down that obstacle course because it's not just one thing, is it? It's an onslaught.
It is an absolute onslaught.
First, we have massive habitat destruction.
Right. And this is the equivalent of running that ultramarathon we talked about
Yeah.
and arriving at the one oasis in the desert you rely on for water.
Only to find it's gone.
Exactly. You find it's been paved over for a shopping mall or drained for industrial agriculture.
That's devastating.
The wetlands and forests they absolutely need to refuel are disappearing at a staggering rate. Without those specific pit stops, they simply starve to death mid-journey.
And then there is the climate change mismatch. This fascinated me when I was looking through the sources because it's not just about it being, like, too hot.
No, it's not.
It's about the timing, right?
Yes, it's called a phenological mismatch. Remember earlier we talked about how birds use the length of the day, that photoperiodism, to know when to migrate?
Right. The daylight tells them when to go.
Exactly. But insects and plants, they use temperature to know when to emerge or bloom. Because the climate is warming globally, spring is arriving earlier in terms of temperature.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, so the caterpillars hatch earlier. But by the time the birds arrive, operating on their ancient light-based calendars, the peak food source has already come and gone.
Wow.
They arrive to a barren pantry just when they desperately need to feed their chicks.
They're arriving exactly on time, but the world around them has just sped up. And what about the physical obstacles? We mentioned they navigate using the stars in their magnetic site. How does our modern infrastructure mess with that?
Light pollution is a massive and honestly often overlooked killer here.
How does the light kill them, though?
Well, remember, many of these small songbirds migrate at night to avoid predators and the heat of the sun. But our artificial city lights, the sky glow, it acts like a massive magnet.
Like it overrides their natural navigation?
Yes, it draws them directly into urban centers. They get trapped in the glare, and they end up circling skyscrapers in confusion until they just drop from exhaustion.
And if they don't drop from exhaustion, they hit the glass.
Yes, glass buildings kill hundreds of millions of birds annually.
Hundreds of millions. That is hard to hear.
It is, because a bird doesn't understand the architectural concept of a transparent barrier. When they look at a modern high-rise, they don't see a building. They see the reflection of the sky or maybe the trees planted inside the lobby.
So they just fly full speed into what they think is open space.
Exactly.
That is brutal. And we haven't even touched on chemical pollution, like pesticides poisoning the exact insects they need to eat.
Right.
Or the fact that in many regions they are still actively hunted and trapped for sport or illegal trade.
Yeah, when you look at all of it combined, the habitat loss, the climate mismatch, the glass, the lights, the poisons, you really see the interconnected tragedy here.
Everything affects everything else.
Precisely. If a wetland in Europe is polluted, those birds arrive weak in Africa. If forests are clear-cut in South America, the pest controllers never arrive in North America.
Right.
Environmental destruction is never localized. A localized failure inevitably ripples out to become a planetary crisis.
Okay, I have to admit, laying it out like that, confronting a global, borderless infrastructure collapse of this magnitude, it feels incredibly overwhelming.
It really does.
I can easily see someone listening and thinking, well, what on earth am I supposed to do about international climate mismatches or, like, Siberian wetlands disappear?
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge burden.
But this is where the 2026 World Migratory Bird Day theme actually steps in. And it pivots hard to the micro level.
It does. The official theme for 2026 is every bird counts, your observations matter. And it is entirely focused on community science.
Now, I have to play the skeptic here and push back a little.
Okay, go ahead.
Your observations matter.
Okay.
I love the sentiment, but come on.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about a global multi-continent crisis involving billions of animals and massive industrial threats.
Right.
Can a kid with binoculars or, someone sitting on their lunch break in a city park logging a sparrow on their phone actually make a dent? Is this just to make people feel involved, Or does the scientific community actually need this?
No, it is an absolute non-negotiable necessity. Let me explain why.
Please do.
Professional scientists and conservationists just cannot be everywhere. They don't have the funding or the manpower to monitor 10,000-kilometer routes in real time,
That makes sense.
but everyday people with smartphones do.
So it's about the sheer volume of data.
Exactly. When millions of people use apps like eBird to log what they see in their backyards, their local parks, or on their hikes, they are essentially creating a massive distributed sensor network.
Oh, wow.
They are building a real-time global radar of planetary health.
Oh, I see. So a single observation of a robin is just a data point.
Right.
But a million observations of robins suddenly shifting their route 50 miles to the east, that's a massive scientific discovery.
Precisely. That community data feeds directly into supercomputers and algorithmic models. It tells global conservation organizations exactly where migration routes are shifting due to climate change.
It draws the map for them.
Yes, it highlights which specific patches of forest are suddenly vital stopovers. Policymakers use this exact grassroots data to decide where to establish protected areas or which wetlands to save from developers.
So the data from everyday people is driving the big decisions.
Yes. Without that citizen in the park, the global scientific community is effectively flying blind.
That is highly empowering. It takes this abstract global journey and makes it deeply personal. The data doesn't exist without the individual.
Exactly.
But beyond just observing and logging data, what else can an individual do? Because if a bird lands in my neighborhood after flying over the ocean, I want to make sure my neighborhood isn't part of that deadly obstacle course.
The micro actions are actually quite profound because they scale up so well.
Okay, like what?
First, rethink your local habitat. Planting native trees, shrubs, and flowers in your yard or community garden is crucial
Why native specifically?
because birds have evolved to eat native insects and native berries. Invasive ornamental plants don't provide the right kind of high-octane fuel they need.
So you're saying upgrade the quality of the fuel at the pit stop.
Exactly that. Second, reduce your use of pesticides and harsh chemicals. If you poison the caterpillars in your garden, you are poisoning the bird that just flew 3,000 miles to eat them. We have to keep the resting grounds clean.
Makes total sense. What about the light pollution we talked about earlier? Is there a tangible impact if just, say, a few houses in a suburb turn off their lights?
Absolutely. During the peak spring and autumn migration seasons, simply turning off excessive outdoor lighting or even just installing motion sensors makes a massive difference.
Really? Just a few houses?
Yeah, because if an entire neighborhood dims its lights, you create a dark sky corridor. That allows a flock to navigate safely by the stars instead of getting pulled into the confusing glare of the suburbs.
That's amazing. Just flipping a switch can keep an entire flock on course.
It's that simple. And finally, we have to advocate against the illegal hunting and trapping of these species. We really need to educate our communities, especially children, that these birds are not infinite resources.
Right.
They are fragile travelers performing an absolute miracle.
Small actions, but when repeated by millions of people across a continent, they literally rebuild the infrastructure of that invisible highway.
They really do. To bring all of this together, migratory birds are the ultimate ambassadors of endurance and ecological balance.
Yeah, they really are.
They don't recognize our flags, they don't speak our languages, and they operate entirely outside our politics. Yet they undertake these brutal, mind-bending journeys, trusting that the earth will provide for them.
They just trust that the wetlands will be there.
Exactly. They trust the insects will hatch and the skies will be clear.
They trust the rhythm of the planet. And I think the ultimate question we are left with is, will humanity prove worthy of that trust?
That is the big question.
Can we clear the obstacles we've put in their way?
Yeah.
Because, as the 2026 theme declares, every bird counts.
Yes, it does.
But more importantly, every human observation, every darkened porch light, and every native plant counts just as much. By protecting their journey today, we are actively preserving the ecological systems that keep us alive tomorrow.
It is a profound responsibility, but it is also an incredible privilege to share the planet with creatures capable of such spectacular feats.
It really is. So we're going to leave you with a thought to mull over tonight.
Yeah.
When the sun goes down and the sky gets dark, I challenge you to step outside. Stand in your yard or out on your balcony and just look up.
Just look up at the dark sky.
Try to imagine the invisible rivers of life flowing right above your head. Just wonder for a moment what tiny paperclip-sized travelers are using the magnetic pull of the earth and the glow of the stars to navigate an ancient journey directly over your home at this very moment.